exactly what we're going to be doing for the assignment, and that is we're going to be taking a black and white photograph and then recoloring it, or applying color to it. So you basically can take a black and white photograph and make it into a color photograph using adjustment layers. Okay. So right now, I've got a photograph right here that's black and white. It's a little like wedding basket, and then there's like little supposed to be pink petals right around here, but you can't really see that. But I'm gonna colorize this basket right here to kind of make it pop out. Okay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to grab an adjustment layer just by coming down here, clicking on adjustment layer. Come on, computer, you know you can work. And we're going to go to solid color really quick. Okay, with solid color, so it kind of looks like crap right now, but just because it looks like a big solid color. I want to get down to like a nice little brown for the basket, maybe a little bit darker than that. Hit OK. So right now we're doing what's called non-destructive editing. If you've watched the other video that I posted up here, or the link to the other video, then you'll know what non-destructive editing is. We'll talk about it a little bit. Okay, so here I've got, if you look over here, I've got my color fill adjustment layer, and I can easily turn it on and off, just like that. It doesn't really change anything all that much. Okay, so I've got my color fill layer right here, and then I've also have an adjustment layers mask. But right here, there's really nothing. I mean, nothing is being concealed or anything. It's just an open mask. So I'm going to fill this mask with black, and I can do that by selecting the mask, and you can tell it's selected because it's got these brackets around it. And so this is unselected, now it's selected, okay? So I've got it selected. I'm going to come up here to Edit. I'm going to hit Fill. I'm going to fill this with black. Well, this is just one way to do this. Hit black, hit OK, and then it reveals everything. Now I don't have to do that. Let's undo that really quick. Hit Edit, Undo Fill. Okay. I can also come over here and use my Paint Bucket tool and make sure that black is selected, and just click right on there. It does the exact same thing. Okay. So there's multiple ways to do everything in here. Okay. So now I use that Paint Bucket tool on my mask, and when it's black, it reveals what's there. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over to my brush tool, and I'm going to actually start painting this color back in over this basket here. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit right here. I'm going to grab my brush and start painting, but I have to have my brush be white for it to actually show up. So I'm going to click back down here on this little double arrow. It'll switch back from black to white. A shortcut for that is X. So if I click on X, it just goes back and forth, so you can see that happening down there. So I'm going back to white. I'm going to paint this back in. Now, it doesn't look that good right now. It just looks like solid color. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. What we've got to do is change the blending mode to it. And the blending mode will make it so that it will maintain this luminance. So I'm going to come over here, over into my layers palette. And if you don't have your layers palette visible, just come up here to Window and click on Layers. Mine's already selected, so that's why it has a check mark right there. But if you can't see your layers palette, just do that. So here's my layers palette, and here I've got my blending mode. So I mean, there's a couple ways I can do this. I mean, I could easily, the boring way would be to just drop down my opacity, and there it shows a little bit right there. But I think blending modes work a little bit better. So I'm going to drop this down here and use color as my blending mode. There we go. That looks nice right there. That's looking like I'm actually adding color and not just painting crap over it. But it's a little bit messy because I had a nice big brush. So, and that's what you can see how it's kind of bleeding into the sides right there. So I'm going to back out again really quick. And since I'm using this with a mask, I can easily just go back to my brush and go back to black, and I can paint back over that again. And it just conceals what I just barely did. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, and I can start fresh. Okay, so now let's zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to grab my brush, shortcut is B, and if you're not sure where that is, it's also right here on your toolbar. So I've got B here, and I want to make it a little bit smaller. I can use my bracket tools to make that a little bit smaller, or I can also just control-click. That opens up this little dialog box right here, and I can change the size of my brush, also the hardness of my brush. So now watch. So right now I've got it this size, 45 pixels. I can increase it a little bit more, makes it a bigger brush, so on and so on. And now the hardness you can't really tell in this stage because when I'm actually painting with it, let's switch this back over here real quick. See how it's got that soft kind of feathery edge? So I don't really want this when I'm doing something this exact. So let's paint back over that again. I want a little bit of a harder edge. So I'm going to right click or control click. I'm just going to turn my hardness all the way up. So it's going to go from like a nice fuzzy brush to a really sharp brush. Okay, so now when I am painting, it's a nice sharp brush. Okay, color that up again. Okay, so now I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. Hit Control, drop that down a little bit. There we go. Now I can actually use white to paint this over. This kind of looks a little more gold than anything, so I'm actually going to go ahead and change my color to make sure this looks right. So, and I can do that just over here in my layers palette. If I look at my color, I can just double click on the color, and let's adjust this color a little bit. Let's make it a little bit more of a darker brown. That looks a little bit better. Let's make it a little darker. There we go. That looks nice. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back over to my mask, my brush, and start painting that in. There we go. That's looking better. Beautiful. And the beauty about this is it's non-destructive. So whatever I'm doing is not going to affect the overall image. I can always go back and I can paint over it again with black, get rid of a mistake. So say for example I'm painting around here and suddenly I slip and oh crap, what happened there? So all I've got to do is just go back onto black on my colors down here, make sure I'm on my mask, and I can paint that right back on. Paint it back into black and white, or remove any problems that I might have. Okay, there we go. So backing out just to kind of see what it's going to look like a little bit. So that's looking okay. So let's go back into this. Switch back over to white, paint this in a little more. I'm sure you guys are really excited. This takes a little bit of time, actually a lot of time. So for this assignment, I wanted you guys to take a little more extra time to work on it, okay? And we'll review all this a little bit more when we have class on Tuesday. Okay? Alright, so let's see. So there's one color. So pretend I went through and I painted over all the basket here. Now even down here where it's a little bit darker, if I paint that in, it just basically continues that luminescence. So it's not as bright as it is up here, because it's still got that color down here. And you can change your blending modes too, because different blending modes will change the way everything looks. So see, I just turn that to saturation, that does absolutely nothing. Turn it down to luminosity, that just looks like muck. I like color. That's one of the best ones right there. There's other different things that blending modes can do that can cause some really interesting effects. But we're not going to handle that for right now. Okay, I'm going to back up. Now what about if I want to do a different color? So like over here I've got a little rose petal or something like that. I think this thing is supposed to be pink. These things are both supposed to be pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another adjustment layer for solid color. Just like that. Okay, let's make this a little bit better color pink, like that. A nice lighter color pink. Hit OK. I'm going to select my mask again, and I'm going to go up here to, here we go, up here to Edit, Fill. I'm just going to fill it with black again. So now I'm back to my original piece, and now I can start adding in the second color. Go into this a little bit more. I'm going to grab my brush, make sure I'm on white. Here we go. And it's coming on really thick just because I haven't changed my blending mode on this. I'm going to go back in here, select my blending mode now to color. See, it's adding that on. Get that brush just a little bit smaller. And so now on something like this, I might want to do a little bit of a softer brush. Let's grab that again. I'm going to right click again, drop my brush down on the hardness down just a little bit, because this part right here is just a little bit out of focus, a little bit soft. There we go. Down the sides of my brush a little bit more. And there we go. Look okay. Back it up a little bit. There's one little pink rose petal there. That's a little bit bright, so I'm going to try and drop that down a little bit too. Let's choose my rose petal. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can go in and choose a different color, like a little more muted color. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can also drop down your opacity here. And it gives kind of the same effect. There we go. Okay, so what your assignment is going to be is to get a black and white image, and if you don't have one, let me know. I can supply you guys with some. And you're going to take that black and white image and you're going to recolor the entire thing. So, I mean, it's kind of like a little bit of an exercise in coloring. I mean, literally, like, that is your assignment. You're going to be coloring something. But it's going to teach you guys how to use masks, which is a very important process. You'll use masks all the time in Photoshop. A couple other ways you can work on this too, and this is how some other people create masks. Is they'll go through and they'll do a selection first. Like, say for example, if I've got my lasso tool, and let's get in close to this one real quick. Let's grab the magnetic lasso. Oh, come on. Actually, gotta have a layer selected, I guess. There we go. Grab this lasso right here. Just make like a regular selection, you know. So they'll do the selection right there, so it's got the little marching ants, and then they'll come over and do their adjustment layer. So the adjustment layer only applies right there. Let's do this other one. Do it a different color. Let's do like a red. Actually, no, let's make it a purple. Okay. So now, if you look on your adjustment layers here, on your mask, you can see it's a whole bunch of black, and then just that tiny little bit of white right there. I don't know if you might not be able to see it on your screen, but there's a tiny little bit of white that just signifies this selection, which is a really small selection in comparison to everything else. So it does make that mask, but it is also still editable. So I can grab my brush again and add more to it if I wanted to. So let's change the blending mode on that one again. Bring that one down to color. There we go. I'm going to drop down my opacity a little bit on that too, because that's kind of a very much saturated purple. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to do this. All right. So, like I said, your assignment, and I want you guys to use a nice photograph. Okay, if you want to go onto the onto our our image database that we have, that's great. You're more than welcome to use those. We would love to, I mean, if you need any other photographs, you can talk to me too. I've got quite a few that you can work with. So just let me know, and I'll actually see you guys on Tuesday, because I'll be coming up, because I got to come up and pick up my motorcycle. So, all right, guys, I'll catch you later. Thanks. Bye.